In this video we share Garabandal prophecies unfolding in our day. Until a few years ago, the fulfillment of Garabandal's prophecies seemed far-fetched, that God would make a decisive intervention in the world to return to the faith through a warning, a miracle and a punishment, and that it was in the coming decades. But in the last decade the warnings prior to its consummation have begun to crystallize. And today we are with almost all the previous warnings already fulfilled. Here we will talk about what were the warnings prior to the intervention of heaven that the Virgin announced in Garabandal and how they have been fulfilled. In Garabandal, Spain, one of the most prophetic and miraculous apparitions of all time happened in the 1960s. The Blessed Virgin informed the 4 girl seers of heaven's plan for the world to return to God. First, there will be an enlightenment of consciousness, called warning, where each inhabitant of the earth will see his sins as God sees them, will know that God exists and will have a call to conversion. Then there will be a miracle to reaffirm that the warning existed. And finally a punishment, to remove much of the evil of the earth. During about 2,000 apparitions of the Virgin and the Archangel Michael, large crowds were gathered in the village. The girls went into ecstasy and a huge number of supernatural events were recorded, which are reported in videos that can be seen on YouTube, told by eyewitnesses, some of them priests. There was a communion in the mouth given by an angel and photographed. Witnesses say that they were trying to distract the visionaries from the trance by means of needles, burns or blows, but they did not succeed. Lights were projected directly on their eyes but they couldn't cause them to blink. The girls were able to run backwards so fast that not even the young people of the place themselves could reach them. They fell abruptly to their knees on the stones without ever suffering a single scratch or feeling pain. They were able to know whose rosaries were that the crowd gave them all together so that the Virgin could kiss them, and they were never wrong. They unexpectedly knew intimate things about people. And many more things, which have not happened in such abundance in the apparitions of the last centuries. However, the Church has not approved these apparitions, even though they have already been completed, although it has not condemned them. One of the fundamental reasons is that some priests felt hurt with the 2 messages that heaven delivered, and a group of them presented themselves to the bishop to pressure him to stop the phenomenon. The first message of June 18, 1961 said the cup is already filling up and if we don't change we will get a very big punishment, and the second message, of June 18, 1965, said, before, the glass was filling up, now, it's overflowing. Many cardinals, bishops and priests go on the path of perdition, and with them they lead many more souls. The trial was unimaginable, because at that time the priests had a very high image in public opinion, but it fell abruptly with the unveiling of the abuses decades later. In these appearances along with those of Medjugorje, heaven already set a deadline for when the remodeling events of the world would be unleashed. He told the visionary Conchita of Garabandal and the visionary Mariana of Medjugorje that they would be alive to announce the events days in advance. In the case of Conchita, she will announce the miracle that will come after the notice, 8 days in advance. So there is a limit, that is the age of the visionaries. Conchita was born in 1949 and Mariana was born in 1965. But even more interesting is that Conchita gave several clues about when the miracle would be, of which she already knows the date. It will be at some point within the calendar year after the warning, so the warning will come unexpectedly. It will coincide with the feast of a holy martyr of the Eucharist. It will be between March 8th and 16th, April or May. It will be a Thursday at 8:30 p.m., Garabandal time, in an even year. But it will also be at a time when they will pile up a series of pre-notices, most of which it would seem that they have already happened or are in the process of happening. First, the Virgin told Conchita that the miracle would be fulfilled at the time of an important synod in the Church. And he spoke specifically of a synod, when at that time those meetings of bishops were not frequent in the Church, as they were from Paul VI. And that synod would be important. As of 2021, the Church is immersed in the Synod of Synodality, the most important so far, because it will last from 2021 to 2024. It is the first time that the Synod has had a global dimension, with a level of consultation and dialogue never before seen in the history of the Church. The second warning is the disappearance of Benedict XVI, who, according to the Virgin, told Conchita, would inaugurate the end of time, a new era in the Church and in the world, where the Church will enter a great test, after which the Immaculate Heart of Mary will triumph, as announced in Fatima. He told him that after the death of John XXIII, on June 3, 1963, there were only 3 popes left, plus one that did not count for its short duration. This prediction is remarkable because the short-lived pontificate of John Paul I, which lasted only 33 days, was fulfilled. The other 3 popes were Paul VI, John Paul II and Benedict XVI, and here there is a discussion among the analysts, because this prophecy may well have been fulfilled 10 years earlier, when Benedict XVI resigned and Francis took over. And the truth is that since the Assumption of Francis, a great doctrinal confusion has been unleashed in the Church that is seen in the statements of bishops and cardinals. A third warning is that the warning will happen in the midst of a global tribulation. Seer Mari Lowly reported that Our Lady had revealed to her that the warning would occur at a time when Russia will suddenly and unexpectedly invade a large part of the free world. After the fall of the USSR in 1991, many people thought that prediction was crazy. But 2 things happened. First of all, Russia's sudden invasion of Ukraine in 2022, as well as threats to other parts of Europe, have led this prediction to unexpected compliance. In several statements, the visionaries described tribulation as the return of communism. But in the 1960s, there were no signs that communism would soon disappear. In fact, at that time, it was reaching its highest level of global influence, much less you could think that it would leave and then return. So the prediction of the girls constitutes in a sense a double prophecy, that communism would go away and then return. The collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s marked the disappearance of the world leader of communism, Russia, who had spread his mistakes all over the world. But in the following decades, cultural Marxism made great advances in Western society, through the critical theory of race, gender ideology and radical feminism. In most of the West, the moral principles of the Bible have been rejected, which were once enshrined for their Christian heritage, and have embraced the worldview of cultural Marxism, promoting it in its laws. And the World Economic Forum, which aims for a great restart of the world, maintains that the preferred political system is that of Communist China. So communism not only returned but almost encompasses the whole world. The fourth previous warning is that Conchita said that something would happen before the warning, which would cause many people to lose faith in the authenticity of the apparitions in Garabandal. And something like that happened on June 18, 2014, when Joey Lomangino, the great apostle of Garabandal, died. According to Conchita, the Virgin prophesied to him that he would regain his sight before he died, however he died blind. Although it is known that at the end of his life he rejected that offer, in an act of surrender for the world to return to the faith, but that was not disclosed as it should have been done. The fifth previous warning is the predicting of the visionaries that events would occur when the churches were closed, and the faithful could not receive the Eucharist. This is something that happened for the first time in history worldwide due to the pandemic in the years 2020 and 2021. Although later this was recovered, therefore we cannot be sure that the prophecy was fulfilled. And the sixth warning is that the German author, Albrecht Weber, quoted Conchita saying that the Pope will go to Moscow, and when he returns to the Vatican, hostilities will break out in different parts of Europe as a prelude to the warning. And since the Pope has not yet traveled to Moscow, the prophesied events may still be in the future. Well, so far what we wanted to talk about the warnings prior to the intervention of heaven given in Garabandal and its state of compliance. With the fact that this does not imply the prediction of a date, because only God knows it. And because the prophecies are conditional, at any time God can judge, in his infinite understanding of the facts, that the intervention must be carried out in another way. And I would like to ask you if you think we are near or far from heaven's intervention to reform the world or not. Thank you for supporting my channel. May God bless you and keep you. Our Lady, Queen of Peace, pray for us.